Hello everyone, my name's Jack, and today we'll be looking at the results of Romance Twilight's second art competition. I'm the game master of this campaign, and I run things on this channel. Today I have with me my staff, TJ and Hazard, along with last year's judge and player, Kai. They make up just a few members of the minds behind the scenes at Romance Twilight, the podcast adventure I run here on this channel. They will be the judges this year, while I will only be hosting. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Kai. I do the voice and play the character Monroe.
Hi, I'm TJ. I do some work on the artist side. I'm making storyboards right now.
Hi, I'm Hazard. I help with the character conceptualizations and hopefully the future arts.
Unfortunately, our main character artist, Apit, is currently unavailable to judge at this time due to his job commitments. Also, Tony has been in and out of the hospital and is unable to judge. However, in their place, Hazard and Kai are filling in for them, so I want to thank you guys for subbing in.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem at all.
Just like last year, we have 9 amazing artists that entered and we'll be going over their art together. Before we start, I'd like to introduce an update regarding the rules regarding draws. Last year, we allowed the position of the designs with the same score to occupy the same placement in rankings. This will no longer be the case this year. For this year, we've introduced a head-to-head system. If 2 designs reach the same score, each judge will cast a vote for one or the other, and the higher scored piece will be on the higher seed. Alright, with that out of the way, is everyone ready to start?
Sure am.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Ready to go?
Let's jump in. Knightsleepy entered with a design indicative of episode 18's horror vibes. It depicts Billy, the soldier from Cheetah Kingdom's Bravo team, sitting on what looks to be a box or a shelf. He's smoking a cig and holding his gun. He's looking to be rather calm and is safe from the monsters that lurk just behind him. The rain hitting the window that divides them. Included in these monsters seems to be the womanly figure yelling for her children. There's a red floor of what looks like blood laid beneath his feet. Also, there's words surrounding Billy's head, likely the monsters. Lastly, it seems that this was sent as a screenshot with Knightsleepy's phone button still visible at the bottom in the top corner. The inspiration behind this has basis in episode 18's story. However, it doesn't depict a scene from episode 18 and therefore doesn't qualify for the raffle bonus. Despite this, I can imagine Billy's calm, no-nonsense style made an impact on Knightsleepy, and the shadowy figure behind Billy correlates with the woman monster in episode 18. This design is titled Billy's Moment of Respite. A fitting name, I believe, as it describes the calm danger that lies just around the corner on the island that is Thriller Bark just perfectly. Unfortunately, if you'd like to commission Knightsleepy, he's asked that I don't give away his contact information at this time. So with all that being said, what do my judges think of our first piece, Billy's Moment of Respite?
It's a cool piece. I like, how calm Billy looks, like in the face of danger, just chilling, sitting there, smoking, has his gun with him. Kind of looks like there's blood all over the floor. In Thriller Bark, it was obviously dangerous place, monsters everywhere. The art itself, though, does look very, amateur, like beginner artist. It's not super detailed, but there is a lot going on that kind of adds to the way you can read the art piece. Overall, it's it's okay. It's not super great looking, but it does a good job of telling the story that he was going for.
I agree with Kai for sure. I really like the storytelling aspects of this. I like the skeletal hands and the shadows making up the monsters. I do agree it sort of lacks some of the technical ability that some of the others have. One of the things that does bug me when I look at it is the shadow is flipped the wrong way underneath him. One of the things I like the inclusion of the shadow, but the gun isn't reflected in the way it should be. But I like the overall vibe of the piece. I like his expression, just calm, not looking back. But yeah, there are a few things that I do think could be improved upon.
Yeah, I have to agree with everyone else. It's a nice piece with storytelling behind it and the sort of context of it, though its professionalism seems a bit lacking. The gun is nice, though it's a bit crooked. All in all, it's a good start for a budding artist.
Now, I've talked to Knightsleepy a lot. He's a big fan of the series, and I'm surprised he entered with this piece. He's never actually told me I'm going to enter with a Billy design. He just entered with a Billy design. He's actually shown more interest in the Silent Samurai in the past, but we'll talk about them another time. I'm a big fan of the concept here. I think the concept in the artist's mind, Knightsleepy, is probably worthy of a higher score. It's just Knightsleepy has that amateurish art style that he's still working on and improving over time.
I do enjoy the composition of the piece, with Billy right in the middle and all these monsters creeping up behind him. It definitely reminds me of like art that I've done when I was starting out, except I feel like he put into a lot of thought into it with story aspect.
It should be noted that growth is an important thing, and this is just a beginning.
I'd be interested to see if you did samurai art too.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think this is our only Billy submission. Other than there's one other drawing of Billy, but he's not the forefront. He's a background character of the design. So I wanted to open the floor and say having Billy as the main forefront whenever most of the artists are entering with the typical main cast of characters, Thomas, Monroe, Bethany, and then you have Coy and Alice have seen a lot of drawings. Billy was kind of a surprise for me. And what do you think made him draw Billy in particular rather than the rest of the cast?
I think in the recent arc of the story, Billy's just been like a very prominent character. So if he's been keeping up with the campaign, he's probably been somebody who's been at the forefront of his mind while watching it.
He's probably been the sort of figure with the sort of most mystery behind him compared to the merchant, and is certainly a lot more photogenic than Daniel.
Daniel's only been in the background.
a very specific vibe. If they had this idea for a scene of a character acting coolly in the face of danger, maybe Billy seemed like a good choice for that.
His first introduction was that hallway scene where Thomas and Monroe are trapped at the end of the hallway and he bursts in ready to save them. So he's always been portrayed as the cool in the face of danger character, so this is right up his alley.
I believe I gave this one a 3 out of 10, just for, the reasons I said before. Yeah, artistically, it's not... There's not a lot of detail. It wasn't done super well, but it's still a cool piece. You could still tell what's going on in it. It tells a story, so overall, I'm grateful for the submission, and it does look pretty cool.
3 as well, with the same thoughts as Kai. Sort of it might be not as professional as the others, but it does tell a story.
I gave one a 4. I agree. I think some of the technical ability, the anatomy, a little bit off, but I enjoyed the composition, definitely the ideas behind it. I think definitely there was a lot of effort put in that you can see. It wasn't just a bust portrait, which I feel like this was definitely not phoned in, and I really appreciate the effort. I think it looks great, and I can't wait to see what else this artist does in the future.
So with that, Knightsleepy's entry of Billy's Moment of Respite scores a 10 and ranks 10th place overall. Thank you, Knightsleepy, for entering the contest. Lynka entered with a solo portrayal of Vice Admiral Coy. He's wearing his normal uniform, gripping a railing as he stares towards the camera with a smile. The background is the ocean and a setting sun. The overall aura of this design looks more sketchy as if it was a painting. The orange in the sky contrasts with the muted gray of the ocean, drawing a clear backdrop. You can imagine him posing for a picture here. The inspiration for this could be that Monkey D. Coy, being a member of the monkey family, is a popular choice for artists to capture. This design is titled Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun, a reference to the backdrop of this piece. You can find Lynka's Twitter in the description below. So with that being said, what do my judges think of Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun?
It's a very nice piece, if I have to say so. It looks like a professional painting that you would see in some gallery. in game, it would be in the private quarters of the admiral's area and quarters. And it would certainly fit into that sort of feel. There is a lack of solid shape compared to like the other entries, but honestly, I feel like that's an advantage on this part. It's very nice and just has that good watercolor feel, oil and pastel.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it looks really cool. I like the background a lot, where his back's to the sea, the sun setting in the distance. He drew the character really well. The clothes fit his body very well. The hands on it don't look too crazy. The way he's positioned, like arms on the rail against the rail, they don't look too wonky or anything. His face is proportioned nicely. Overall, it's a good piece.
First off, I really enjoy the title of this. I think it's very evocative. I like the background that it's based off of, sunset over the water. I did think this one was a little bit messy places. I get it's got a nice sketchy vibe to it, but I do think some more shading or blending could improve it. I enjoyed the expression, I enjoy the background and the overall vibe of the piece.
Koi's always been this calm, cool, and collected character. Going back to his original introduction to the series, we had him show up on the first island, really make his mark on not only Bethany, but like the island as a whole. So to see him standing straight into the camera, posing as if he's taking a day off, maybe kind of gives that vibe to where I'm gonna catch you, but I'm gonna take a day off first.
Yeah, he doesn't seem too rushed about whatever he's doing.
Yeah, it's very, very laid back.
Yeah, but I also feel like part of like some sort of official stuff. How people get an official picture of their of themselves.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. You mean like maybe he's posing for his Marine badge, or maybe he's posing because he's one of the Vice Admiral, and so the Vice Admirals all get portraits of themselves done.
Yeah, the second part, yeah.
This does give posing. I can see you. Yeah, this hanging up somewhere.
What do we think about the color usage here? I think the orange, personally, for me, has been really prominent in the top half. It does draw a really good contrast, but it also, I think, dulls out some of the ability to really clearly contrast Koi with the background here. The second half, the orange and then the gray on the bottom. I feel like a different color palette for the background, a deeper blue could have been more advantageous, but that's my own personal opinion. What do we think about the color usage in this piece?
I do think, yeah, I enjoyed the sunset. I think they could have maybe incorporated that a bit more into the front half of the piece, gave it more of a gold type vibe. They have these highlights as you backlit. I think diving into that and maybe making those a little more golden toned, so it feels a bit more cohesive. But I do enjoy the sunset. I do agree, though, that it could maybe be all brought together a little more clearly.
I feel like when you're doing a sunset, you have to use those very like bright and vibrant colors, and he definitely did that, and it works really well. I like how he shaded the oranges like into the water so that you can tell the setting sun's like reflecting off of the ocean behind him. I think the like more duller colors on Koi's body, I think it works really well for the piece as well.
Honestly, it is good. I just think there should be more contrast between the Admiral and the ocean. Like, if the artist used more contrast to like differentiate the Admiral from the sea, I think this would be a perfect piece.
Yeah, I gave this one a 6 out of 10, and it's not at all because it's a bad piece by any means, but I feel like a lot of the other ones just really raised the bar pretty high, so I felt bad, maybe rating this one up there as like an 8 or a 9 or a 10, but I gave this one a 6. Again, it's not like bad by any means. Like I think they used the colors really well. The character's shape doesn't look like out of proportion at all. I think it fits the character very well too. He's in a lot more of a laid back environment. I guess the only things it could have done better was the image itself looks like very like sketch like. like. Like, it wasn't put through like a whole lot of a final like polishing phase, but that also might be the art style they were going for, which if it is, it works very well for the piece. There's not really a whole lot of things bad to say. The piece overall is very good. It's just some of the other pieces in this competition are just a lot better.
I agree with Kai. It is a 6, and there is a lot of details that makes it good, but compared to the others, it's simple, but it's a good piece.
Yeah, I feel like seems like we're pretty much in agreement on this one. I also gave it a 6. I really enjoy the background, the sunset. I do agree. I think could maybe have used a final pass or two. Overall, it is really nice, and I think the artist did a really lovely job.
With that, Lynka's entry of Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun scores an 18 and ties with our next design for either 9th or 8th place overall. Congratulations, Lynka, and thank you for entering the contest. Evan entered this year with another design of Vice Admiral Koi, back-to-back designs of Koi. Last year, Evan also entered with a solo design of Koi. However, this year he's drawn him with his pupil and newest student, Lance. The two of them are clearly seen on what looks to be the edge of a building, Lance sitting and Koi standing. The background is a marine base and a blue sky filled with clouds. I believe the inspiration for this piece is that Evan's entry last year being Vice Admiral Koi, this year he wanted to take another crack at him. This design is titled Good Weather Today, a reference to the setting of the piece and the two of them on the edge of the building looking out. If you'd like to reach out and commission Evan, his contact information will be in the description below. So with that being said, what does the judging panel think of Good Weather Today?
Honestly, it's very nice. It's like the drowning in the rays of the setting sun, that sort of professional painting done for those admirals that was mentioned before. There's a lot of good colors, and honestly, the contrast is fantastic. But as like the other one, it's not as clear and sketchy, but because it's probably the art style that is trying to be replicated, I think it works. Honestly, I think it's a step above, if I'm honest. So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, this one's nice. Just like the Drowning in the Rays of Setting Sun, I like the background on this one, the nice big blue sky. I like you can obviously tell that's a very like standard marine building behind them. They're probably sitting on some type of sea wall here. I like that Koi has that bottle of like rum or alcohol that he's like kind of trying to stash away in his pocket there. Lance is actually drawn very well, kind of like just like a standard boyish build, but nonetheless drawn very well. The only things I have against this picture are kind of like the proportions on Koi's face and how some parts of his body seem like stretched in some areas. Like the upper left button on his shirt seems to be like stretched out a little more than it should be. I don't think it should be like that far. Same with his face. His face seems kind of like stretched into like a point almost. And I feel like the shadows are used a little bit too much on here. I don't think it should be as dark as it is, but other than that, it's still very, very good. Koi looks like he fits in here, like having a fun time with his pupil. Seems like they're taking a break from training maybe. Overall, it's good. It's just I had those few gripes with it.
I had some pretty similar thoughts to Kai again. I think it's a really nice scene overall. It's got a very cohesive vibe to it. Great bold colors. I enjoy the texture on the clouds. I like how the hair was done, especially for Lance. And I do agree. I thought there was a little bit too much contrast and shadow for lighting source. They're especially stark on Koi's face, which I think maybe lends to that slightly pinched feeling. I like the shadows. I think they just don't really feel right for this piece with this setting, the good weather today. One thing I do really enjoy about this piece is I feel like I keep noticing more details, zooming in on it. There's like tiny little birds in the background. There's little bits of blue shading on Vince's face and some really nice shading.
So I just wanted to open up the floor here a little bit and talk about once again the colors usage. there's so much blue, and I know it's a marine base and they're dressed in marines, but I feel like the usage of different blues would have added to this piece a little more to draw a better contrast, just like with Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun. This feels like Koi and Lance are getting like washed out in the background. Not a lot, but just enough to where it's like, okay, maybe we should draw a clear outline of the characters. What does the judging panel think?
I think in the Drowning of the Rays of the Setting Sun, it was a little like easier to see Koi. He was a little more defined against the background because of the orange used for the setting sun. You're right. In this one, the blues kind of like wash out, like the blues and whites of the sky kind of wash out the blues and whites of the marine uniform. So it is a little less defined. I think that's maybe why they went so hard on like the shadows and the black being used, which I think kind of did them a disservice in this picture. But you can even say the same with the marine building, where like the Marines blue and white, the background's blue and white, their uniforms are blue and white, so it's just kind of blending together a little bit.
There could be a bit more contrast in the colors, I was just gonna say. And although I am always a sucker for using a bright blue in place of black in places, I think we see that with some other pieces that we got, and I think it always adds a little bit more dynamic element to what could just be a plain black.
I'd have to disagree. Honestly, the shadowing sort of clarifies the shapes more, and it's certainly a lot more interesting and visually appealing.
So another thing I'd like to bring up is once again, this is Evan's second entry with a Koi piece in a row. So last year he entered with a solo piece of Koi staring into the camera at some kind of rocky terrain. This year he's also entered with Koi. Now, one of the critiques I had last year when I was a judge was that he's using a really good art style, but he's not doing anything particular with the character. Personally, I'm not a judge this year, but I do want to mention that Billy's design in Moment of Respite was able to give off a sort of a scene vibe, and there's something happening in it. Here, it's just like the two of them are just standing there. If they were ending a training session, don't you think they would be a little more sweaty, or there'd be kind of indications to that? Here, it's almost as if they're just standing and sitting there. I don't particularly get any emotion from that. However, what does the judging panel think of my comments?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see where you're going with that. It doesn't really jump out at you and scream, hey, like they were just training, or hey, they were just doing really anything. They're just kind of sitting on this wall here looking off into the ocean.
I agree with the sort of like the whole subject of the thing. I think it's a very good piece, honestly, and it's got a lot of contrasts that make it look interesting.
I think the title, The Good Weather Today, does set the tone for the piece of just a calm moment of enjoying the being outdoors. But I do agree, it feels more like a moment in time and not really connected to a before or after of it.
Overall, it's all right. I think it's a decent photo of Koi. I'm glad that the artist really likes that character. Kind of interesting, since like I haven't, as a player of Monroe, like had any direct interaction with him in the story yet. So it's cool to see that people, like him that much, even though I haven't really, I don't really know a lot about him coming from like a player perspective. He's definitely more involved in Thomas's backstory, but it's cool to see people drawing characters that haven't been around in the campaign for the most recent like half of it. So I gave this one a 5 out of 10. I rated it lower than Drowning in the Rays of the Setting Sun for the reasons I mentioned when I was, describing what I thought about it. His face just seems kind of like stretched to a point. That button on his coat seems kind of stretched off more than it should be. I feel like he kind of overused the blue and the white in the photo. There's just too much blue and white on the building, blue and white on the Marine uniform, blue and white in the sky. The shadows, I feel like, are just too intense. It does help to add contrast. It does. Like, it helps define the characters' outlines and their shapes, but it just seems too dark for what otherwise is supposed to be like a bright and sunny day. While in the Rays of the Setting Sun photo, I feel like the colors in the background did really well to, set the tone for the time of day. They kind of set a relaxing vibe for maybe, Admiral Coy's portrait being drawn for the Marine Gallery or whatever. I feel like those colors help to define his shape more than in this photo. And I feel like the shadows on his cape did a lot more to define his torso and legs in the Rays of the Setting Sun photo, where in this one I feel like it just kind of washes out the characters and the whole vibe of the nice weather.
I'm kind of like the opposite of what's going on here. I like all the sort of stuff that's been going on, and I don't believe it's lesser than the setting sun picture. Honestly, it's equal to them. I like the more variety in the background, so I gave it a 6.
I gave this one a 7. I liked it. I prefer this sort of cleaner style a little more. A lot of effort was put into this one, like I mentioned, with all the details. Didn't give it like full points because I did feel some things with the shadows could have been improved upon. Overall, I really did enjoy this piece.
With that, Evan's entry of Good Weather Today scores an 18 and ties for either 9th or 8th place overall. Congratulations to Evan, and thank you for entering the contest. With both designs each scoring an 18, we have a draw. Lynka's Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun versus Evan's Good Weather Today.
I'd like to say that both are very much same vibes, same style, though I feel like the better of the two is the Good Weather Today because of the variety in the background.
So I think Drowning in the Rays of the Setting Sun is the better piece for the reasons I said earlier. I like the use of the colors more. I think the characters defined better. The proportions of the character is done better. His face looks better. The hands drawn better. It even gives Coy the vibe of being like relaxed and calm a little better than Good Weather Today does. Good Weather Today I think it just overuses the white and the blue. I think the shadows are just too harsh on it. Both overall are decently good pieces. I just think Drowning in the Rays of the Setting Sun gets the win.
I really enjoyed both of these pieces. I think they both had a strong setting to them, and it was very cool to see Coy in these two different styles. As a tiebreaker, I guess I also preferred Good Weather Today. I think I really enjoyed the painterly style. I think it seemed more polished. I enjoyed the inclusion of both characters and this nice background. Well, I enjoyed Drowning in the Rays of the Setting Sun. Overall, Good Weather Today gets my vote.
And with that, Lynka's entry of Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun places 9th, while Evan's entry of Good Weather Today places 8th. Poy entered with a portrait of Thomas D. Lau, the captain of the Misfit Pirates. He's wearing his normal clothes, wielding a sword, flag at his back, vest, etc. The background in this piece is an orangish red, likely an explosion that just went off. There's a blur effect to this piece. Thomas looks to be scrunching his brow, glaring right above the camera. The inspiration behind this doesn't seem to be hard to fathom, as Thomas is the main character and the protagonist of the series, and therefore it stands to reason that he would be drawn. This design is titled Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions, a reference to the explosion happening in the background. Unfortunately, if you'd like to commission Poy, he's asked I don't give any information to contact him at this time. So with that being said, what do my judges think of Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions?
I really like this piece. I think it fits the character pretty well. I could totally see Thomas blowing something up and then looking the other way very, like menacingly and walking away from it. I like the explosion particles in the background. You can very clearly tell it's a big fiery explosion. I love the demonic-esque look in his face, because while Thomas it's not like he's unreasonable, but he's not a nice person either. You know, he's very much, you know, kind of in things for himself to an extent. I like his flag that he's carrying with him. The only gripes I have with this painting is like his nose seems very overly scrunched up, like with the wrinkles and the nose and the forehead. But I do think that does play into the demonic like look of his character very, very well. Other than that, I think it's just drawn pretty well too. It goes for a more kind of realistic art style than like the cartoony One Piece art style that we're used to, but I think it works well for this picture.
I do enjoy this. Not exactly realism, but closer to it. Very well rendered, especially the face. I think the hair is really impressive. It looks really nice. I am also a little bit thrown off by all of the wrinkles. I think it just makes it look pretty scary to look at. But I really enjoy the levels of the blur, like where they have the blur versus the detail. I think Poy did a nice job with balancing that. It's a very cool looking piece. A nice talent to it. I like how they rendered the mouth, the face, those shadows. Yeah, I'm a little thrown off, I think, also by just the highlights on I think that's the sword in front of him. The level of detail of the highlights when the rest of the sword is kind of blurred out. Yeah, overall, I really like this one.
I have to agree with Teach on that. It's a lot of detail, and it's something that sort of startles in a way. This whole sort of like vibe of anger that is on the main character's face, that just really is one of the many sort of things that catch my attention. Of course, the background could be better. It doesn't really look like an explosion, but I do see the where the artist was going with.
What I would say is when I first saw this, it was very thrown aback by it. It's very unlike any design we've had before. The only real way you would know that it's an explosion, in my opinion, would be the title, because while it is an explosion color, there's not really any indication of it being an explosion. And I'm pretty sure Thomas's, maybe it's mirrored for you guys in some way, maybe it's on the other side, but Thomas's tattoo is on his right arm. Is that, am I going crazy? Or
I think if you like face the same direction the photo's facing, that is his left arm that the tattoo's on.
Okay, I thought that was just me.
As for the explosion effect, I can see where it's like, yeah, it's a little like hard to tell, but for me it's like I can very clearly tell it's like meant to be like fire effect, and it's like it only doesn't look like an explosion because it's like so zoomed in on his face that it's only catching like that like fiery part of the explosion. Like if it was like a full body, like I would want it to look more like a traditional, like you can see the whole like explosion, but I think because it's so zoomed in, the like particle-esque fire effect is fine.
Since the flag is so blurred out, that the explosion itself isn't really, but I guess how you would need to be able to see it to know that it's an explosion to have those particle details in there.
I think with the flag being blurred out, they were trying to go for like a camera type of look where like the camera's focusing in on like Thomas's like demonic face and then the like fiery explosion and like blurring out the foreground, because even like Thomas's like coat, I guess you could call it, is a little blurry too with the flag, so that way you kind of focus in more on like the face and the fire.
That's exactly what I think was the idea here. The blur effect isn't something you really see in art done too often, but I haven't seen it done in last year's design or really this year's designs other than here and with Poy's design.
So I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I think that it does Thomas's character very, very well. I think it captures like the little like unhinged part of his character. I like the explosion. I like the cartoonishly looking demonic face. I guess the only thing I didn't really like about it was I feel like you could have still had that demonic face without it being like overly like scrunched up and wrinkled. I will agree. The fire effect in the background could have been done a little better where it's like a little more readable as an explosion, but you can still assume that it is fire. But overall, I like the emotion it captures, and I think it's done technically pretty well as well.
Me, on a personal, I chose 5 out of 10 for my rating of this picture. It's not that the shading and the sort of detail that the character has is good. The background just doesn't do it for me. It looks more like some sort of sun than an explosion. And the blurry flag just makes it difficult to contrast it to the background. That's why I gave it a 5, but that doesn't mean it's not a bad piece.
I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I think it has really nice texture and rendering. I think some of the blurs did throw me off a bit. The intense wrinkles are like very well rendered still. It's not my favorite part of the piece, but I do think it was very well done. Yeah, and thank you to Poi for submitting this.
Vinnamon entered with a solo design of Alice. She's portrayed with her hand sticking out like she's about to use her hand crossbow. Her mouth is obscured by her cloak. She's wearing her normal outfit. She's drawn in a typical anime style, the cloak flowing behind her. She also has an earring visible. I believe the inspiration for this piece could be that Alice is a popular character to draw between this year and last. That could be because her design leans into a very fighter aesthetic that draws people in. This design is titled "Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow," a reference to her weapon and her aiming down sights. If you'd like to reach out and commission Vinnamon, her contact information will be in the description below. So with all that being said, what do my judges think of "Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow"?
It's really got that whole like anime pose down, and it's got good shading as well, though it could be better shading. But honestly, the whole threads of leading towards her bow is nice, and the cloak makes it look very nice as well. Though honestly, I feel like it could be better, like any art piece, and I hope the artist makes the effort to work on their art. Good job, Vinnamon.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like the more like minimalist kind of art styles like this. I think it's done very well. I'm more fond of like female characters being drawn too. I'm kind of like biased in that sense, so I do like this a lot. I like Alice's character too. Like I see why like a lot of people are drawn to her, and she was pretty prominent for the parts of the stories that she was in. Overall, it's done very well. I like the pose. You can feel the movement and the character, the way that it was drawn. Shading's done very well. I feel like having no background is a good choice for the art style that they went with. There's not like a whole lot to say, just because like I said, it's very kind of minimalist. She does it well because of the solid coloring, the solid outlines like for the body parts, and she puts enough detail in like the eyes of the character that it doesn't feel completely soulless.
It's very cute. It's very dynamic. It has the nice use of a limited color palette, and I like the ways that the artist used gradients. Even in just the background, I like seeing those like yellow threads go from the lighter color to the darker color, even though it's just over the background. There's a lot that I like this. I like the details in the eyes, all those highlights. I was a little thrown off by the scarf, or the cloak cuts off a bit weird. It looks sort of hair or like a tail, maybe. Yeah, I like this piece. I think the shading is minimal, but nicely done. It's a nice one. I think the artist did a nice job.
So there's not too much to say, just like Kai was saying, is that this is just like one character in one pose with no background. We can't talk about, however, the contrast between the green eyes with the rest of the piece. That's the only green, so it draws you in. Like Kai was saying, there's a lot of detail in the eyes here.
Yeah, I think the eyes do well to bring life to a piece that doesn't have a lot going on. But I say that, and I'm not trying to make that seem like a bad thing. Like I don't think it has to have a lot going on because the art style is so simple, but it's still done very, very well.
The eyes definitely do draw you into the face, which is sort of one of the focal points. I feel like you're led from the hand through this like line of action through up to the face, and the rest of the body. Simple, but very clearly technically proficient, and it's not simple for a lack of skill.
Very simple yet dynamic, and the green really puts it together.
Yeah, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Like I said, I like the simplistic art style. I've done really well in this piece. I think the eyes are very bright, vibrant, and they kind of bring you in to focus on the face of the character. I think it's done very well.
I'd like to say this is a 5 out of 10. It's very nice. It's very simple compared to the others, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's a wonderful piece. And I think it has its own merits.
Yeah, I rated this one 7 out of 10. I think it is a lovely piece. I like the color palette. I like the design. I do think I didn't rate it higher, probably just because it like we were saying, it is just sort of one character, no background, just sort of a pose. I think some of the other ones I really enjoyed seeing the characterization and story shine through. But it's a very nice piece.
With that being said, Vinnamon's entry of Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow scores a 20 and ties for our next design for either 6th or 5th place overall. Congratulations to Vinnamon, and thank you for entering the contest. Migzzz entered this year with a much different design than last year. Last year, he brought a scene depiction of Kenway confronting Thomas, the standoff. This year, however, Migzzz made an animation to enter with. It's a cutout of Monroe pointing to an empty backdrop with his other hand near his mouth. The scene turns into Bethany laughing at his wanted poster, then turns into the Hellspawn with a red hue, Bethany's head covering the Hellspawn's junk. The inspiration behind this piece being the 2 shorts on the channel, Monroe's wanted poster and the introduction of the Hellspawn. It just barely qualifies for the raffle bonus. Migzzz did draw the crew reacting to the bounty poster. With only Migzzz depicting a scene from episode 18, he automatically wins the raffle bonus, so congrats to Migzzz on that. Other than that, considering the contrast between the 2 scenes, I imagine the goal here was to do more with the animation. This design is titled Monkey Doodle Dance, a reference to the bounty poster and Monroe dancing. If you'd like to reach out to commission Migzzz, his contact information will be in the description below. So with that being said, normally I would open to all of the judging panel, but let's actually get the monkey man himself. Monroe, what do you think about Monkey Doodle Dance?
Yeah. I think like Monroe in the thing, or in the dance is drawn, well. He doesn't look bad, doesn't look off. Colors are all right. Character's shape is all right. I like, Bethany reacting to the wanted poster. I remember whenever I first saw it, it was just completely ridiculous. The way I reacted in character was kind of what was going through my brain when I first saw it in person in real life. The depiction of the Hellspawn is cool. I do like that. Overall, it's all right. It's very simple with the movement in the animation. The actual pictures in the background aren't, too complicated. They're pretty simplistic as well. I'm gonna be honest though, the music over it and then just the dancing, it cringed me out so much when I first watched it. And I don't know if a change of music would have changed that or not. I maybe only feel that because it is like my character, but it definitely gave me some cringe goosebumps when I watched it the first time, and it still does when I'm watching it now.
I thought this was fun. It felt like it was based on a meme format already that I didn't know. I thought it's fun. I think extra points for animating at all. It's great to see the characters come to life. I thought it was fun and see a little unfinished, just sorts of cuts off. I enjoyed the animating aspects. I think there was a fun effort put into it. I kind of would have liked to see maybe more things underlaid over it.
The animation is smooth, and it's probably the only one that is animated, but it's a nice piece overall, and the song it's very meme-ish in a way, and it does a good job standing out from the rest of the competition.
So
So
I
it
guess
could
I'll-
be better with the with the shading.
Kai did mention a minute ago that watching it makes him cringe. That could be because it is his character, or just the fact that it's very cringeworthy. Now, my proposition to that would be, do you think that's on purpose? Because as I'm watching it, it does feel like that was an intentional choice in the direction, was to make it cringe.
I mean, it very much could have been, and if that was like his choice, he obviously did that part of it very, very well. It's just like, it's not a video that I'd ever choose to go back and watch because of that factor. So because of that factor, I've knocked a couple points off of my rating.
I agree, but the animation work did work, and that's why my rating is a bit higher than others.
Yeah, it's also just like a very simple animation. It's not like he's doing anything crazy. It's move up and down of the character's arms.
There could have been like a little more effort put into just making it. I feel like it did feel very memey either way, and I think that was intentional. I do just think there could be more to the background. Like the Hellspawn was fun, but it seemed it's like just a different style and cohesive with the rest of it.
It is very memey. The way I like created Monroe, or like intended to play Monroe, was supposed to be like a very memey character, so it does fit very well. Like, I am biased when I'm saying that it like cringes me out because it is my character, so that's why I say that.
Before we move on, I just wanted to make a mention that if this is unfamiliar to you, the audience, in any way, the episode in question, episode 18, this happens during the sailing towards the island. The news crew comes down and it reveals the wanted posters for the main crew. However, Monroe's bounty poster is of just a monkey, not himself. We just want to clarify that for anyone who hasn't been tuning into the series in any way. Also, you can find that short on my channel. The other aspect to this, the Hellspawn, is a creature that the crew have to engage in a battle with inside the mansion at some point. And I believe the reason for introducing those two aspects in one video could be the juxtaposition between as they're leaving towards the island. It's very goofy. The bounties are arriving. We're upbeat. And then the island hits and it's very, oh crap, this is, what the heck is that thing attacking us?
Mine is 7 because of the unique aspect of animation compared to the others. Doesn't reach a 10 because whole like memish nature and also the lack of shadows.
I also gave this one 7. I enjoyed the meminess and the animation to it. I do think it could have been a bit more cohesive, polished. I overall enjoyed the extra effort put into it.
I gave it a 6 out of 10, mainly because I just thought it was so cringe. But I mean, the art overall, the character's drawn very well. Monroe's drawn well, Bethany's drawn well, the demons drawn especially well. There's not a whole lot going on in like the background of it, and it's not like textured or shaded insanely, but it looks visually pleasing.
All right, with that, Migzz's entry of Monkey Doodle Dance scores a 20 and ties for either 6th or 5th place overall. Congratulations to Migzzz, and thank you for entering the contest. With both designs each scoring a 20, we have a draw. Vinnamon's entry of Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow versus Migzz's Monkey Doodle Dance.
I mean, they're two very different pieces for sure. Almost opposites in some ways, just with one of them a nice style, but not a lot of characterization, and then the other one more characterization and a goofier style. I did choose the Monkey Doodle Dance for this just because the animation gives it some extra points of seeing the multiple characters. I appreciated the effort effort and the personalization to the story of this one a bit more.
My choice was, surprisingly, let your aim be true and your heart will follow. I guess the epicness of the pose, despite its simplicity, just sort of spoke to me more than the animation meme, though the animation was more akin to the story. Let your aim be true was my choice.
I chose Vinnamon Portrait of Alice. I just think artistically it's done better. Both of them do very simplistic designs of the characters, but I think Vinnamon's is just better, decently better shading. I like the colors a lot more. The eyes, like I said earlier, do a lot to bring life to the picture, where Migzz's animation is just kind of, it just seems like, just kind of like a funny meme. I don't think it really holds up artistically like Vinnamon's does.
All right, with that, Miggs's entry of Monkey Doodle Dance places 6th place, while Vinnamon's entry of Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow places 5th place. Noot entered this year with a similar design to last year's entry. Last year, Noot entered with a solo portrait of Sarah Quill, Little Doodad. This year, Noot entered with a solo portrait of Lee Barron. An interesting choice. Lee Barron is not one of the main cast members as of yet, but we have been following his story in Adventure Tale Below the Depths. This side story tells the tale of Lee Barron, player 3, set to join the main cast sometime in season 2. Each episode of Adventure Tale Below the Depths can be found at the start of episodes 13 through 25 of season 1. Lee is captured here in his marine uniform. He's underwater, and as a fishman similar to Jimbei in the original series, has the same features. He's wearing a red bandana and is looking off somewhere off camera with one eye closed. There are bubbles all around this piece and you can feel the water. Noot explained to me the inspiration behind this piece is the desire to draw a fishman in an underwater setting. Very simple as that. This design is titled A Deep Quiet, a reference to the calm and serene nature of the piece. If you'd like to reach out and commission Noot, her contact information will be in the description below. So with that being said, what do my judges think of A Deep Quiet?
This is like a very good example of an art piece that uses a lot of one color, but does it very, very well. Almost the entire art piece is blue and white. They use enough variations of blue and white that it's not overbearing. It's brought together very, very well. The greens mixed with the blues highlights the character's face very well. I like how it goes from light to dark as it goes from top to bottom. Mixings of like the pinks and purples like into the white to have it shaded very well. The bubbles, they look reflective. They look like bubbles. They're very well drawn. And then I like the pop of the orange on Lee's bandana and like under his eyes.
This was maybe my favorite piece just stylistically. I really enjoyed the coloring on this. I think the use of color is very well done. Blues, the white just has these purples and pinks on it, so it isn't just a flat color. This one has also those bright blues used for outlines on the face, and the orange being the complementary color. Really nice. The colors are great. It gives a full scene underwater. The title is fun too, with the deep quiet. It gives this sort of serenity underwater. I really enjoyed this piece.
This is certainly a beautiful piece. The watercolors, the bubbles, all the stuff that the other two have mentioned, it's beautiful. And it becomes together as this sort of beautiful array of color and water. And it also speaks to the character's upcoming arc.
Notice how the character is standing out from the background, and I think the reason for that is if you look, it's a black outline throughout the entire character. That gives it the ability to completely stand out here. Previous designs, we've seen how characters can really muddy between the background and the foreground can get muddy if you don't have that black outline.
The colors too are good. The slightly darker colors in the foreground than the like lighter blues and whites in the background too.
Yeah, I think the black outline around the character definitely helps to set it apart from the background, and it helps to separate separate the character's blues from the background's blues. But I think even without that, the colors are different enough to where the character would stand out. But the outline definitely does help make it pop.
Having a character with this like inhuman skin color was probably fun for them to work on, because they really got to push the blues and exciting colors that you don't get to see on white or brown skin.
If you take a look at Lee's face, he's got those two fangs and he's got the red bandana with the red eyes that were mentioned previously. Now, whenever you look at a design of an art piece, you want to look for what draws you in. Here, it's very clear what the artist wants you to look at. The artist wants you to look at the face of the character. The red just pops with how powerful it is in contrast with the rest of the blue, almost like he's able to just be there.
And the bubbles sort of highlight that.
A little bit about Lee's character is that before he joins in season 2, I wanted to be able to give the audience a way to look into his life before he joins and show off his last mission as the leader of Vortex Squad. That last mission will slowly, throughout the episodes, go into how he ends up where he ends up when the crew will meet him in season 2.
I rated this one a 9. I really enjoyed the appearance of it, the style, the coloring. I didn't give it full 10 points because I do think there are others that really dived into characterization and story, especially with some extra creativity, but definitely one of my top ones.
I'd like to say this is probably one of the 10s. I just love the colors, the highlights of the bubbles, and everything else. It's very nice.
I also gave this one a 9 out of 10. Lee isn't my favorite character design that we've done, and that's not a diss on my buddy Gavin who came up with the character or the artist for the character. It's just for some reason I'm not particularly drawn to it, but Noot did a very good job of drawing the character in a very visually pleasing way.
And with that, Noot's entry of A Deep Quiet scores a 28 and ties with our next design for either second or third place overall. Congratulations to Noot, and thank you for entering the contest. Fran entered with a solo portrait of Alice Garcia. She's captured here with red eyes, staring into the camera with the focus on her hand crossbow. Her blonde hair with a black middle, a scar across her eye, blood on her face, the overall energy being very badass and ready to fight kind of aura. I can't possibly imagine the inspiration behind a piece like this. For all intents and purposes, Fran went hard in the paint. Alice's original design is that of a battled warrior, so possibly this is what drew her to her. This design is titled The Ultimate Showdown, a badass name for a badass design. If you'd like to reach out to commission Fran, her contact information will be in the description below. So with that being said, what do my judging panel think of The Ultimate Showdown?
Honestly, it's epic. Glimmers of the arrow, the feelings of the scars, all this stuff that accumulates into this beautiful piece. Fran did a great job on this piece and should feel pretty proud. And I especially love how the hair and the weapon sort of stand out from the background. It's very nice.
Yeah, I do think this is a gorgeous piece for sure. Really great overall effect. I love the orange, reddish highlighting. It really makes it pop. It was a great choice. There's some places it feels a tiny bit messy to me. The hair, like the strands, feel a little messy. Overall, I love the colors, the gold, the design is, yeah, definitely very well done.
Lost Camp, the battle against Kenway, that was one of my most favorite sessions to play as Monroe. And looking at this portrait of Alice just brings back all the memories of that session and that battle against Kenway. She looks very like battle scarred, battle torn in this picture. She's drawn very well. The orange in her eyes just makes it look like she has a fire in her heart. She's just ready to go. I like that the hair does look kind of messy because it does make it look more like she was in the heat of battle. The only thing I don't really like about this photo is like the medals on her torso, like on her arms, on her torso, are just drawn very, very blurry. I wish they were a little more like detailed and polished. They just don't look like they were quite finished. But other than that, beautiful depiction of Alice.
So Alice's journey into becoming the president of Lost Camp, essentially putting down the weapon and taking up the metaphorical book, for instance, becoming a politician. It's almost like this is her swan song. This is her final battle before joining Lost Camp's political future. This piece shows the energy, the aura in the description that I gave. It's almost as if it's, instead of it being an art piece, it's giving me more of a just energy that I feel when I see it, at least. I wanted to bring more attention to the small details, more or less. The earring on the right, the little glare on the tip, the little how the eyes have a little tinge of dark. It's almost as if a lot of the detail in here is really been taken care of.
Yeah, I think the details are done very, very well. I like the earrings a lot. I like the glint off of the arrow. I like how much her face like conveys emotion as well. It's almost like this was drawn at the point in the battle where like the desperation is over. Like our side is winning and she knows it, and like she knows change is about to come and she's about to finish off the last bit of resistance that we're facing.
I agree. I love the confidence in the expression, very, very intimidating, and I especially love the details on the left in the gold. I think those were nicely done.
A lot of the details are wonderful. It's just so well put together.
For me, this was my 10 out of 10 pick. I just really, really like Alice's character. I really liked that arc in the story of our campaign a lot, and this kind of just helps to express how I thought about that arc. It just reminds me of all the fun I had playing that, so I might be a little biased, but even besides that, artistically, I think it's drawn very, very well. I like the details. I like the amount of emotion that they were able to convey with the character.
This is also a 10 out of 10 for me. Just the detail, the glimmers, and everything just put together nicely.
For me, I did give this one an 8 out of 10. I really love it overall. I do just think some of the slightly messy areas, like the hair, parts of it didn't feel quite as intentional to me as the Deep Quiet. Overall, I do really love it.
With that being said, Fran's entry of The Ultimate Showdown scores a 28 and ties for either second or third place overall. Congratulations, Fran, and thank you for entering the contest. With both designs each scoring a 28, we have a draw. Fran's entry of The Ultimate Showdown versus a Noot's entry of A Deep Quiet. Remember to speak specifically about the comparison between the two designs.
So the two designs compare very well. They're both very hyper detailed. The use of color is great on both of them. I think for me, Fran's picture of Alice kind of edges out the win just because I like the character design of Alice more than I like the character design of Lee Barron. Artistically, I think they're both done similarly well. I don't really know how to explain it other than that.
Yeah, I did choose A Deep Quiet over Ultimate Showdown just because I really love the style of that one. It really all parts felt very intentional with the colors. I do think this was definitely a very tough choice because they're both very beautiful, beautiful pieces. The coloring was very creative and evocative in A Deep Quiet. While I did enjoy the overall aesthetic of Ultimate Showdown, the leave won out for me.
I'd have to say the one that really got my interest most was Ultimate Showdown. It's a difficult choice, honestly. Both Ultimate Showdown and A Deep Quiet are very good on both fronts, but I feel like the one with Alice is more provocative and has a lot more weight in the current story.
With that, Noot's entry of A Deep Quiet places third, while Fran's entry of The Ultimate Showdown places second. As a disclaimer, I don't discriminate to allowing my artists to compete in my art competition. They are fairly judged just as everyone else. However, our top artist is one of my series artists, so they do have experience drawing my characters. Azreal entered with 2 designs, one of the 3 misfits flying through the air along with Billy and Sherry. They have Vegapunk with them. There are many different colors, each of them in egghead outfits. There's a sunbeam in the top left. Thomas has an inquisitive look on his face. Bethany is grinning. Monroe is hanging on to Bethany. Billy is holding on to Vegapunk's tongue while Sherry is holding on to Billy. There's a blue sky with some clouds and everyone is using Vegapunk's shoes to fly. This piece is titled, What If the Crew Went to Egghead? The inspiration is simple, Egghead, but the Misfits plus Bravo team instead of the Straw Hats. In the second design, it depicts the Misfits a lot older outside of some kind of shrine, each of them having their epithet as text beneath them. Thomas, the one-man army, the mighty Bethany, and Monroe, the monkey. Specifically, each member of the crew is much more gritty than they were when they were younger. Thomas has white hair, red eyes, a big beard, and a new sword. Bethany has a big white mustache in the exact same way as Whitebeard. Also, he has a yellow eye patch and a scar across his shoulder. He's wearing orange. Monroe has a big scar across his right eye socket, the eye missing, a big yellow earring. He looks serious, not as happy as in his youth. He's lighting a cigarette. It looks like Monroe took up smoking. His trademark afro looks flat and depressed. The inspiration behind this looks like an alternate universe where the crew went down a dark, but maybe not the darkest timeline. I could envision this as an evil route. This second piece is titled, What If the Crew Were Alive During Luffy's Era? If you'd like to reach out and commission Azreal, his contact information will be in the description below. So with all that being said, what does the judging panel think of what if the crew were alive during Luffy's era and what if the crew went to Egghead Island?
Both of these are fantastic. These are the king of the crops, as one would say. Both have their strengths, but I'd like to say the one with the 3 being alive during Luffy's era is the most interesting. It just feels like an upcoming arc in the One Piece series that just feels like it has some tension, while the Egghead Island piece is more colorful and cheery. There's a contrast between the two, and the two are wonderful in different ways.
Okay.
And I really love the shadings and color choices of each.
For the Egghead one, I really like it a lot, especially Monroe in it. This is very much how he would act if this situation were to happen in the campaign. I really like the, alternate timeline type scenarios for both of these drawings. And I like that both of them are kind of in different art styles. It shows their range as an artist and how much they can actually do. The future one where it looks like we're maybe Yonko is really, really cool to think about if maybe we did like something very, very serious happened and we did go down more of a dark path. The way that Riley and I play our characters and the way you play Bethany, I don't know if something serious enough could actually happen to make us lose our characters' goofier sides, because they look kind of overly serious in these pictures. The shading on the Yonko pictures is done very, very well. The proportions for all the characters' faces done very, very well. The background looks really cool. Like you said, like we're sitting in front of some kind of shrine. And I like how our characters keep kind of our signature things. Like Bethany keeps his signature necklace, Riley keeps his sword, and then my afro's still there. It's just kind of, like you said, flat and depressed a little bit. And then in the Egghead one, I think the characters' personalities do shine through. Like Monroe's kind of cowardly side, Bethany's just like courageous and fun side, and Riley looks kind of confused as to what might be happening. Or Thomas, sorry.
Really, really enjoyed these two as well. I think a great characterization and creativity would show that off. The artist imagining these what if scenarios, I think that was really clever. I love both of them. I think What If the Crew Was Alive in Luffy's era is probably my favorite of the two. I love these dramatic characterizations, Thomas's glowing eyes, the light from Monroe's lighter. I didn't even notice the afro had gotten kind of sad and flattened. over time. But I think it's great that the lighting is very cool with the shadows on all of their faces. Very talented. I like the Egghead Island one too, with bright colors. The expressions are great. I also love Monroe's. I feel like it didn't even need Billy and Sherry in the background, but it's a fun choice. Yeah, these are two really great pieces.
Before we move on, we'll dive deeper into first we'll do Egghead Island. We'll probably dive into the discussion around it a little more. So the energy from it is very light spirited, and I can see that Billy and Sherry kind of followed them from the Thriller Bark arc. I've never considered them allies beyond this arc, but imagining them just in this hyperbolic time chamber that I've constructed for myself, imagine if they joined the crew and this is just them with the crew in some way, or maybe they followed them. I don't know how they got into the sky without Monroe knowing that they'd be in the sky, but at least Monroe has a little headgear for his afro. It's not going to get messed up. Thomas looks like he's completely just flabbergasted by the situation. All of this just seems very what we see in One Piece.
It's very much the One Piece vibe.
We've got Luffy colors on Thomas. We got Zoro colors on Bethany. Sanji colors on Monroe. Very branded on theme.
Honestly, it's wonderful, and it just feels like something that would exist in One Piece if it were to happen. And I just like the what ifs that are here, and it's just very colorful.
Colors, I enjoy seeing the slightly different colors. Monroe's got sort of the greenish tint to his face. I'm also glad he has a little helmet to protect him. He seems not having the best time up there.
Yeah, I definitely like seeing the characters having fun like this, especially since we're in kind of a dark and depressing arc of the story right now.
All right, moving on to what if they were alive during Luffy's era. Our characters are very goofy at times, and seeing them this serious is kind of a juxtaposition, a whiplash for me. I almost didn't recognize them when this was submitted in. If you remove the title cards, it's very hard to really notice that they're the same character. Where did the mustache come from for Bethany? The sword is different for Thomas. Smoking for Monroe. Like, I've never envisioned Monroe as a smoker. Like, what could have happened in his story to make him start smoking? Lastly, did Bethany get more tan? The Michael Jackson tree. Where did his color go? Just all of the changes in the character design just gave me a lot of whiplash.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that about Bethany before you mentioned it, honestly. That kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, that's a good question. But other than that, like, it is very cool just to see the characters, older, more serious looking. They look stronger, too, is another cool thing. It's always cool to think about, like, oh, what am I going to get next that's going to make me more powerful? How am I going to be able to defeat stronger enemies? How are we going to advance our positions within the pirate world? And this is kind of like the end goal of that, I guess, if we were to go the full-on we're big bad pirates route.
Yeah, I really enjoy just what they make you think of and consider. When I first saw this, I didn't I think I looked at Thomas especially and was like, okay, I don't know who that is. And then I do think Monroe is still definitely pretty quickly recognizable, even if you look further and you're like, wait a second, there are things I don't recognize there. I really like the designs. Bethany's mustache does bug me a little bit, just, it looks fun. I'm just, how? Exactly, it's just like he's got a big knife under his, like a double-edged sword under his nose. This was my top entry. The amount of creativity and characterization and everything that went into it.
Changes are obvious, but I can understand who is who in this setup of characters. And I really like what is being shown here. It really is a what-if situation, and it begs the question of what was done. Now that I think about it, both are a 10 out of 10, if I'm honest. I originally gave the Egghead Island one a 9, but the colors and the setup and the what-ifs just sort of really spoke to me, and I really enjoy that. And that goes as well for the Luffy era crew. I'd really love the story that might be hidden behind each of them, and just wonder what has happened to lead them on this path.
So I gave both of these 9s. They're both done artistically, like very well, almost perfectly for what they were trying to accomplish. That last point is just a preference thing. I just like one of the other art pieces a little more than both of these, but they're both done very, very well. And I don't really have anything negative to say against them.
I am also now feeling like I should have rated Egghead Island 1 higher, but I won't change my rating. I won't change things up. I did give it 7 initially. It is just a really good piece. I think of the two, rank it a little bit under Luffy's era, which I did give it a 10. I think it just really knocked out of the park in really the effort put into it, the thought behind it, both the style and the background of it made that my 10 out of 10 top choice.
With that, Azrael's entry of What If the Crew Went to Egghead scores a 26 and ranks 4th place overall, while What If the Crew Were Alive During Luffy's Era scores a 29 and ranks 1st place overall. Congratulations to our top artist, Azreal, and thank you for entering the contest. With each of the artists' entries covered, we'll now give a big shout out to all the artists one last time for entering. In 10th place, we have Billy's Moment of Respite. In 9th place, we have Drowning in the Rays of a Setting Sun. In 8th place, we have Good Weather Today. In 7th place, we have Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions. In 6th place, we have Monkey Doodle Dance. In 5th place, we have Let Your Aim Be True and Your Heart Will Follow. 4th place, we have What If the Crew Went to Egghead. And 3rd place, we have A Deep Quiet. 2nd place is The Ultimate Showdown. And finally, 1st place is What If the Crew Were Still Alive During Luffy's Era. A big shout out to everyone who entered.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for every artist who submitted any piece of art. I really appreciate that. It always is awesome to see people make artwork of the characters in the campaign.
Thank you as well to all of the artists. All of these were really beautiful pieces, and it was great to see all the different styles that people were bringing to the table. I really enjoyed every single one of these, and I can't wait to see what these people make in the future.
Now, a big thank you to my campaign staff, you guys, and player, Kai, for helping me judge this contest, especially since Tony and Apit couldn't be here. You guys are really great for subbing in there.
Thank you for setting this up. This was very cool to do. I'm glad I got to part of this.
Yeah, thank you for getting everybody together so that we could look at these awesome submissions.
And I'm glad to have talked with folks.
Now, before I head out, I want to remind all the artists who entered to send me their PayPal so they can receive the prize money. I will also be rolling out payments through the month of January, so be sure to keep an open line of communication with myself as to not lose your prize payout. If you'd like to commission any of the artists seen here today, be sure to check the description below. Finally, to all the artists out there who didn't get to enter this time around, be sure to stick around in the server and stay subscribed to the channel. I host an art contest every year, so if you're wanting to join, stay tuned. Next year, we'll be increasing the prize payout once again and making some changes to the rules and guidelines. If you're at all curious about the characters or the stories you've heard today, check out the series on my channel, One Piece D&D Age of Darkness Romance Twilight. It's a One Piece D&D themed podcast set 200 years in the past before Luffy's time and follows Thomas D. Lau as he gathers a crew and heads towards the Grand Line.
Have a nice day, and remember to have a good Christmas.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the art. Make sure to check out the series.
The next episode to release will be another massive one. Episode 19 has only started production and will continue the Thriller Bark arc. I can guarantee that you're not going to want to miss it.
Honestly, I just love all of this. And one last thing before we go. God rest ye merry gentlemen, that laughing you this way. Remember da 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 da.
What is good? What is evil? Are you truly fighting for what is right? Edward Leon, the leader of the Gentlemen of Fortune, asked these questions while killing Marine Fleet Admiral Hikari on the world stage. Her death struck fear into the hearts of some, while others bask in the unhindered glory of a world in despair. With the loss of a critical piece in the world government's rule over the planet, chaos runs rampant. Even the appointment of a new fleet admiral was not enough to quell the surge in piracy and criminal activity. Nearly 22 years have passed since that fateful day. The world government has somewhat stabilized, but the after effects are still felt even now. In these desperate times, there just might be hope hidden in the darkness. 200 years before the start of the Great Pirate Era, this is the time known as the Age of Darkness.